happened on Sunday in Pittsburgh wasn't just another disappointing loss. It felt like something deeper, something that drains the soul of an entire fan base. Seahawks Trent and 1, Steelers 17. And somehow, that score doesn't even begin to reflect the mess on the field. The problems weren't limited to execution or individual breakdowns. No, this was a collapse on every level. Offense, defense, special teams, nothing worked, and perhaps more frustrating, nothing changed. Let's be clear about something up front. Blame is everywhere. You could close your eyes, throw a dart at the Steelers roster, and probably hit someone who had a bad game. And not just on the field, the coaches, the game planning, the decision-making, all of it felt stuck in some rigid system, unwilling to evolve even when the flaws are glaringly obvious. But when it's this bad, when it feels like the wheels are falling off in slow motion, the spotlight naturally shifts toward the one man who's supposed to keep it all together, Mike Tomlin. Now, Tomlin's always been a lightning rod. Steelers fans are loyal, but they're not blind. And Sunday's home opener showed something that's been building for a while now, a frustration that goes beyond any one player or position. It's the feeling that even when things are going wrong, even when something isn't working, nothing changes. Not the personnel, not the scheme, not even the energy. That's the kind of stubbornness that doesn't just lose games, it breaks belief. Take the running back situation, for example. Jaylen Warren was electric. Every time he touched the ball, he brought life, purpose, forward motion. He looked like a spark on an offense that desperately needed one. And yet, he sat. Or at least, he didn't see the field nearly as much as you'd expect after making plays early. Why? Because the plan, the off-season investment, the narrative, it's all been wrapped around Kenny Gainwell. So, even when Warren was clearly the better option, the coaching staff doubled down. Drive after drive was handed to Gainwell, who offered very little in return. That kind of decision isn't just confusing. It's infuriating. And it's not limited to the offense. The defensive game plan was just as puzzling. Everyone watching knew what needed to happen. Pressure Sam Darnold. Collapse the pocket. Force him into mistakes. Simple, right? The 49ers did it with brutal efficiency the week before, exposing the Seahawks' weak spots and never letting them breathe. But Pittsburgh, they stood back. No blitzes, no adjustments, just a conservative bend-and-then-break approach that made Darnold look comfortable and effective. 3rd and long? Still no pressure. Still no change. It was as if the coaching staff had decided, before the game even started, that they were going to prove their original plan was right, no matter how wrong it looked in real time. And it wasn't just play calling. The personnel decisions were just as stubborn. Peyton Wilson struggled. Missed tackles, poor reads, and yet he stayed out there. Cole Holcomb, meanwhile, watched from the sideline. Why? Because pulling Wilson now would be an admission that maybe, just maybe, the staff made the wrong call. And they're not willing to do that, even if the film screams for it. Same with Broderick Jones. Still locked in as the starting left tackle, even after another game full of inconsistencies. The reason? You already know. Because changing his role would mean acknowledging that the team might have made the wrong move trading up for him in the draft, especially with a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, who just torched them on Sunday, still on the board at the time. It's pride, it's ego, and it's hurting this team. But here's the worst part. It doesn't feel like any of it is going to change. Even after a game like that, even after a week full of discussion, analysis, and visible cracks in the structure, there's this sense, and it's growing, that the Steelers are stuck. Not because they don't have talent, not because they can't compete, but because the people making decisions are more concerned with being right than getting better. That's what truly drains hope. Not the scoreboard, not the injuries, not even the performances. Hope fades when fans, players, and everyone around the organization stops believing that the problems will be addressed. Because you can fix a bad run defense. You can adjust your game plan. You can give more snaps to the guy who's clearly making things happen. But if you don't even try, if you stick with what's not working just to protect a narrative, then all you're doing is dragging everyone down with you. This game wasn't about Darnold slicing through the defense or about Warren being underused. It was about the message that those decisions sent, that even when something's clearly not working, there's no appetite for change. That the coaching staff would rather lose their way than admit they need to pivot. And that's a dangerous place to be in this league. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward? Sure, they weren't flying all over the field making splash plays. But what are they supposed to do when teams are scheming to avoid them, running away from what, and exploiting gaps on the other side left by injuries? What is Cam supposed to do when the rest of the defensive front is getting blown off the ball? You can point to their stat lines and say they didn't do enough, but the context tells a different story. What's being taken out of plays by design? Hayward's getting doubled and still making things happen, just not enough to overcome the avalanche of issues happening around them. And honestly, it's not just about effort. It's about opportunity. It's about putting your best players in positions to succeed, about taking calculated risks, about doing the uncomfortable thing if it gives you a better chance to win. But there's no sign of that here. Not on offense, not on defense, not even on special teams. The approach is static, rigid, and repetitive. And yes, it's only week 2. But in a league where every game matters, where the difference between making the playoffs and watching from home can come down to a single win, you can't afford to treat these early games like extended preseason. You can't keep making the same mistakes and expect different results. Because this team has too much talent to be playing this poorly. And if the coaching staff can't recognize that, if they keep clinging to old plans and old favorites, then this season is going to unravel fast. Not because of a lack of ability, but because of a refusal to evolve. And that's what sucks the life out of fans. That's what drains the excitement. Not just losing. Teams lose all the time. But when you lose in the same way, for the same reasons, week after week, that's when people stop believing. Not in the players, not even in the team, but in the idea that things can actually get better. What makes this even more frustrating is that none of this feels new. It's not some sudden crisis that came out of nowhere. This has been bubbling under the surface for a while, and anyone who's been paying attention could see it coming. The patterns are too familiar. The misplaced loyalty to struggling players. The stubborn adherence to schemes that clearly aren't working. The refusal to adapt even when the situation demands it. The Steelers haven't just hit a rough patch. They've hit a wall that they themselves helped build. Let's talk about identity, because for a long time, that was Pittsburgh's edge. Tough, physical football. Smart, disciplined play. Defense that punched you in the mouth. Offense that wore you down. Even in lean years, the Steelers had an identity. You knew what they stood for. But right now, what is this team's identity? Is it a run-first offense? Is it a team that leans on its defense? Is it a young, hungry group building towards something bigger? None of that feels true at the moment. Instead, the team feels like a collection of mismatched ideas. A run game that's underutilized. A passing game that's uninspired. A defense that bends, breaks, and does very little adjusting in between. And it's hard to rally around that. Look at the play calling. There's no rhythm, no imagination. Too often, it feels like the Steelers are reacting instead of attacking. They're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You could see in the first quarter. After a couple of decent plays, the offense hit a wall. And instead of finding creative ways to build on what was working, Warren's explosiveness, short passing to keep rhythm. The team reverted to predictable sets, telegraphed runs, and stagnant route trees. It was like they were playing not to make a mistake, rather than trying to create something. And the thing is, when you play scared, mistakes find you anyway. Miscommunications, dropped passes, mental errors, they all start to pile up. Not because players don't care, but because they're being asked to do things that don't play to their strengths. When you have explosive talent and you don't give them the ball, you're not just wasting opportunities. You're telling those players that your plan matters more than their impact. And in a sport like football, where momentum and emotion matter so much, that's a terrible message to send. Jaylen Warren showed exactly what he could do. He ran with purpose, with anger, with urgency. He was the one guy on the field who looked like he was trying to change the tone of the game. And yet, instead of riding that energy, instead of saying, let's feed the hot hand, the Steelers defaulted back to their script. Game well back in. Drive stalled. Momentum lost. That's not just bad decision-making. That's ignoring reality. And when a team does that, it sends a message to everyone, players, fans, and opponents, that ego is calling the plays, not results. And let's not overlook the defensive side either. The front seven has been exposed in ways that can't be ignored. Injuries, yes, they matter. But even the healthy parts of the defense are underperforming. The linebackers are getting bullied. The secondary is giving up chunk plays over the middle without any meaningful adjustments. And perhaps the most baffling part of it all, a total lack of aggression on obvious blitzing downs. How does a team with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward refuse to send pressure on 3rd and long? How do you sit back and let quarterbacks go through progressions like it's a walkthrough? It's not about being reckless. It's about forcing the issue, making quarterbacks uncomfortable, taking away time and space. The Steelers didn't do that against the Seahawks, and they didn't do it against the Jets either. So now, 2 weeks in, you have to ask, is this who they are now? A defense that plays soft, relies on four-man pressure, and hopes for the best? That's not the standard that's been set in Pittsburgh. That's not what built the franchise's reputation. But it's what we're seeing. And when the media asks about it, the responses don't inspire much hope. There's a lot of "we're confident in our guys," and "we believe in our process." But belief only gets you so far. At some point, you have to act on what's in front of you. You have to say, this isn't working, let's fix it. Because if you don't, it turns into this endless cycle of disappointment. The team loses, they say they'll learn from it, and then nothing changes. Lather, rinse, repeat. Fans see it. Players feel it. And worst of all, opponents start to count on it. That's when a team becomes predictable. That's when you start hearing coaches on other sidelines say things like, "We knew they wouldn't blitz there," or "We knew they'd stick with Gainwell no matter what." And when you become that easy to scout, you're not just losing, you're helping your opponents beat you. What's maddening is that there are solutions. None of this is unsolvable. You can blitz more. You can give Warren more touches. You can rotate linebackers. You can move Watt around. You can throw over the middle. You can do all of it, but you have to want to. And right now, it feels like the Steelers don't want to. Not because they don't care, but because they don't want to be seen as admitting they were wrong. And that's where coaching becomes part of the problem, not part of the solution. Mike Tomlin is one of the most respected voices in the NFL. His leadership, his culture building, his consistency, all of that matters. But even the best leaders have to evolve. They have to be willing to say, this isn't good enough. And more importantly, they have to be willing to do something about it. That doesn't mean tearing everything down or throwing people under the bus. It means being real, honest, strategic. It means putting the team's success above your own pride. Because the longer this goes on, the more that hope starts to fade. Not because fans are impatient or entitled, but because they care. They've seen what this franchise can be. They know the standard. They want to believe in the vision. But when every week looks like a rerun of the last, it becomes harder and harder to hold on to that belief. And sure, some will say, it's just one game. Others will remind us it's still early. But when the same issues show up over and over, it stops being about the moment. It becomes a trend, a pattern, a story we've all heard before. And if nothing changes, we already know how that story ends. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are swirling in the NFL world, and they come straight from an unexpected source, the Seattle Seahawks head coach. In a stunning turn of events that has sent shockwaves through social media and sports talk shows, sources close to the team suggest that the Seahawks leader has openly acknowledged the dominance of the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, even going so far as to make a bold prediction about the upcoming Super Bowl. According to insiders, during a closed-door meeting with his coaching staff, the Seahawks coach reportedly expressed a rare moment of candid admiration for Pittsburgh, highlighting the Steelers' relentless defense, sharp offensive strategy, and unshakable team chemistry. While it is highly unusual for a coach to publicly, or even privately, tip his hand in favor of a potential opponent, the remarks seem to indicate a level of respect bordering on surrender. The Steelers are on a different level right now, the coach allegedly said, according to multiple sources who wish to remain anonymous. If they keep this form, it's hard to see anyone stopping them in the playoffs. They're shaping up to be Super Bowl favorites. This revelation has sparked a frenzy among fans and analysts alike. Social media platforms are ablaze with speculation, some questioning whether the Seahawks coach is strategically playing mind games, while others fear it signals a lack of confidence within the team. Betting odds have shifted slightly since the rumor surfaced, and sportsbooks are watching closely as the narrative develops. The Seahawks themselves have not commented publicly on these reports, but the locker room atmosphere, according to sources, is reportedly a mix of disbelief and quiet concern. Some players are said to be using the remarks as fuel to prove doubters wrong, while others appear unsettled by the apparent capitulation of their leader. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh fans are reveling in the unexpected praise, already envisioning the Lombardi Trophy returning to Pennsylvania. Whether this is genuine foresight or a clever psychological tactic, the NFL community is paying attention. One thing is clear. If these whispers are true, the road to the Super Bowl just got a lot more intriguing and perhaps a little more dramatic for both the Seahawks and the Steelers. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.